Hey everybody, how are you? Welcome to Impossible Live. Welcome back if you're returning as a guest. If you're joining us live on a replay, or you're on Meta, or you're on LinkedIn, or you're on YouTube, please give a shout out. Let us know that you're here. And one of the things that we love to do, and I want to thank you for joining us and welcome our amazing guest, the delightful Jen Berger. Ooh, beautiful mug.
Thank you.
So it's one of those chilly fall days in the Northeast. So I am all nice and warm and toasty in a sweater. And amazing Jen is wearing one of my favorite colors. And just want to thank her and really let you know a little bit about Jen before we let you dive into her LinkedIn profile or her Meta profile, or you hear her amazing insights. One of the things that I love about meeting Jen is there are no accidents. Universe is sending us beautiful gifts and blessings, and I'm thanking Jen today for being one of those. I know you heard me thank other guests for this, but Jen's extra special. And what you're going to laugh at is occasionally technology doesn't let us know that you're here. So, we want to thank you. Lisa, welcome back. Sean, thank you so much for popping in. And Sean and Jen had a chance to check each other's out at Sumana's amazing conference last week on Global Mental Health Day. And we'll hear more about that, I'm sure, later. And you can check out Sean's profile or Jen's profile to see that. But one of the things that I wanted to say about Jen and timing is that I met Jen during an extended season of gratitude, grief, and growth. And those of you who have heard me talk about that, and I know we've been hanging around sometimes, Lisa, Sean, and others in LinkedIn mastery rooms where we've been talking about the amount of us that we share. And from a personal space, this extended season's been happening for a while, and I'm encountering more and more people who are experiencing it. I want to thank my amazing team member, Carla Sellers from Videos Reimagined, for always reminding me to be able to share that with transparency. And hello, this is Ann Catillas from PQ Coaches Collective. And yes, you'll see I'm really excited by energy and fabulous people. So we want to thank you again for joining us and being here with us today. One of the things about meeting Jen was I had the pleasure of meeting Jen thanks to Ann Catillas and Roberta Ryan and Angie Alexander. They run an amazing community on Clubhouse and on LinkedIn called PQ Coaches Collective. What in the world's PQ? Some of you have heard me talk about this. Hey, Emma, how are you? Welcome back, beautiful. Some of you have heard me talk about positive intelligence, just like you've heard me talk about emotional intelligence. And you'll notice Ignite Trust is under my name. These are some of the coaching communities, disciplines that I'm excited to be in. And I am working on becoming an advanced trust facilitator. This month, I want to thank Yvette Bethel for that. Shout out to wonderful people. In the process, I met Jen during a complicated time, a trust certification in another course of Yvette's, during an early access of a positive intelligence emergence, shall we say, or PQ reimagined, I think was the term, or PQ reinvented. Hey, beautiful Emma, thank you so much for popping in. And in the process, I needed to slow down my processing of the early access program. And the universe sent Jen. It's amazing, calm, wonderful, serene voice on Clubhouse. in life, and as you'll see. And I was having an issue, and Jen held amazing space for me in our first conversation. She held amazing space in our second conversation. She holds amazing space, period. One of the things is, and we'll say it with transparency, both of us, as we hold space for others, we need people to hold space for us. And that might be the one thing we just want you to share live, going forward on a replay. Somebody else you know somewhere needs space. They need someone to hold space for them. They maybe your turn today, your turn tomorrow. And in some cases, somebody looks super strong. You see the cape, you see the hero, the helmet, you see the glowing lights around them, and you don't think they need to. But Sean, Jen, Sumana's community, Emma, others, Ronnie, who pops in, Lachelle, will always remind you we need you to hold space. So without embarrassing her anymore, and some might say that's my longest guest introduction yet. So we're going to get to Jen and Jen's good gems. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to amazing Jen Berger of Silver Wheel Coaching. You'll see her websites under her name. Check it out. Check her out. And we met in Clubhouse, and I couldn't find her on LinkedIn quick enough. And she couldn't find me on LinkedIn quick enough. So today, with our flaming hair and our sweaters, we're sending hugs, smiles across the miles, and virtual toasts. Thanks, Jen. Take it away. Tell the world a little bit about you.
Well, thank you for a glowing introduction, Mel. I'm so glad we came across each other. And so I am a master certified coach. Burnout is my primary focus. I have a background in trauma and addiction as well. And here's my kitty cat to join us today. Um, he never wants cuddles until I'm on a video. Anyway, so with the I worked in residential for a lot of years and I built programs. I built an alternative to 12 step for addiction. And in that time, most of my coworkers would warn me because I also lived on site and I helped clients after hours. And when clients were having struggles in the middle of the night, I was the door they knocked on. And my coworkers would warn me about burnout. And they'd be like, you have to practice self care. You got to watch out for burnout. And I'd be like, I know technically what these terms mean, but what are they? And I would get generally bubble baths and manicures. And I'm like, I work in the barn. I'm not getting my nails done. And I hate bubble baths. So, I realized it was on me to really start diving into the available research. And back in 2017, I just did a really deep dive and I came up with skills and tools for me that allowed me to continue working with my clients because in there I also learned about vicarious trauma, which is a huge thing, especially for anyone in helping fields who hears the trauma of others. And I practiced skills. I had learning to help me get through it, and I practiced all these new skills. And when I eventually left the trauma center, I started my company and I was kind of trying to do a little bit of everything. And I realized that burnout, helping other people through burnout is where my passion is these days. And, especially I've had small businesses before. So, especially with small business owners. And then I'm about to launch a program for facilities who help people who are like mental health and addiction recovery facilities for their employees. So, yeah, burnout, vicarious trauma, those are the things that they're so important for us to understand on we tend to look at them very superficially. And so taking this holistic view of each individual and look at all the pieces at work and outside of work, your past traumas, your grief, everything that's happening in your life that all combine to create the perfect storm for burnout. So that's what I'm doing these days.
Ooh, perfect storm for burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us all, Jen, besides burnout,
Mm-hmm.
why you picked this amazing, amazing song. But before Jen, Emma has a question.
Elaborate on the phrase vicarious trauma. So it's a pretty complex thing, just like burnout and everything else. The simplest way to explain vicarious trauma, it is our response to hearing the trauma of others, especially when we're exposed to the trauma of others repeatedly. So for people who are first responders who are getting there sometimes in the middle of trauma or the aftermath, there might be PTSD. There's also the vicarious trauma of hearing the witness statements. For people in the field of coaching and therapy, like we're hearing the pain of others. And over time, this can build up and we can have a response that basically starts to alter our worldview. And some of the symptoms can really mimic PTSD, but where it's really vicarious trauma is where our worldview starts to shift. We're only seeing the negative in the world, and we start to get a very cynical worldview. And and it affects us. Like one of the biggest ways you can see it in yourself and others is if like 98% of your humor is cynical and sarcastic in this really dark way, and you used to be lighter.
Uh,
So I hope that kind of helps clarify a little.
it sure does. And Emma, don't ever worry about typos. We love your amazing questions and your insights. And Emma, let us know if you want Jen to elaborate any further, because that's what this is about. And Jen's really reminding me, I use the frame fragile world a lot in posts. And my retired first responder asked me the other day when I was working on one of the questions on the topics, why do you say fragile world? About 18 months ago, I mentioned fragile world in a writing community that I was in. And I got blank stares. No one understood what I meant by fragile world. And I appreciate it because it really helped me learn to start really defining it and, refining it and to talk about it. And Sean saying he first heard of vicarious trauma when Jen talked about it at the event, and he's learning to work through generational trauma
And
for.
generation, yeah,
Mhm.
generational trauma is another bugger. And that one can have really sneaky impacts, because things that are normalized in our family of origin, we don't even realize that we're having trauma responses when it is this generational trauma that gets passed down and down and down. And then with generational trauma, we can get into really exciting things like epigenetics and how trauma can actually change our DNA to a degree. And, they've done some really amazing studies. And so that trauma, like, they look at people like the Irish after the potato famine or Jewish people after the Holocaust, and they can see how the DNA has changed and how it changes anxiety levels or our metabolism and all these different things. So generational trauma can even impact our DNA. And the exciting thing about that, people see that as kind of a negative, but that means we can also positively impact our DNA by healing that generational trauma.
Ah, it's so many different things. And we're going to keep answering questions and keep throwing them at Jen because she's amazing. I love it because I said to Jen feels like a firefly day, and I think that's one of the fun parts of some of our conversations. We're never sure where they'll lead, but I really appreciate that. And Jen's mad skills because of it. And the generational trauma thing, kind of exploring a little bit, teeny little bit in the book that I'll be writing with the help of amazing Leslie George, which is Brave Conversations about the Undiscussables. And I appreciate Another shout out to the positive intelligence community, to the PQ, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging community of practice, for really helping give lots of encouragement as I pause and take my time writing this book during a season of gratitude, grief, and growth. Extended. And Jen, tell us about the song "I Want It All" and why you suggested it as an amazing, amazing, amazing title for today.
So I have been in love with that song since I was a kid, from the first time I heard it, but the meaning of the song has evolved, right? Like when I was younger, I really identified with, the adventure seeker, out on the streets, and just like struggling to fight his way up from the streets. And, but as we evolve, songs evolve with us, our understanding of songs. And, one of the things I love is, I'm a man with a one-track mind, so much to do in one lifetime. And for me, like, I get that. It just resonates with my heart because I love learning. I love exploring. I love helping. There's always so much to do. And we can take that from, a positive intelligence standpoint in this very sage place. And if we can stay in sage, this is a joyous thing, right? Going, wow, there's limitless possibilities. I need to just stay in the present and take it moment by moment because there's endless opportunities. Or we can get into that very ungrounded, what we call saboteur mode in positive intelligence. And that's what can lead to burnout really quickly because I want it all and I want it now. And we can overextend ourselves. We don't set boundaries with ourselves and we don't have boundaries with others. We get overextended and we burn out. And so it's really the energy behind how you hear that song and what you want from it. And so that's part of why I just adore it.
Ah, Ronnie, we adore you too. I mentioned amazing Ronnie, and here she is. And boy, am I looking forward to talking with you later today. Um, I think the thing too about what Jen's saying about "I want it all," and really from the coaching perspective, positive intelligence helps you. Jen probably has the neuroscience way of it. Mel will say, "I discovered positive intelligence because when Pop had vascular dementia, there was one day he didn't feel like he agreed with what some family members were saying. And Mom let me know Pop was in a mood. I said, Can I talk to him for a minute?" And I talked to my Pop for a minute. And I said, "Pop, can you hang out with me for a few minutes?" And my dad would twirl his thumbs. My mom laughs because she says, "Now I'm twirling my thumbs." And in his absence. And I said, "Pop," I said, "close your eyes for a sec. Pop, we love you. We all love you. Is it possible that Mom and Kurt are showing up with love and that they're not saying something to make you mad?" He says, "I don't know." I said, "Pop, I'm twirling my thumbs. Can you twirl your thumbs with me?" He says, "Sure." I said, "Pop, can I call you back in like 5 minutes? And while, in between our calls, maybe, you know, think about how much they love you and twirl your thumbs." And I called him back 5 minutes later and I could hear music in the background. And he was in a fabulous, fabulous mood. That's what helped me pay attention to positive intelligence and inspired me to pursue it from a coaching perspective. It stops or pauses some signals. And from my perspective, simplified teacher's kid style, it pauses some of the signals that are happening. It for me, and I learned this during our early access positive intelligence experience, it does not pause grief. It does not pause trauma. It may not pause neurodiversity. There's a bunch of other stuff that it really doesn't necessarily pause, in my opinion, but I'm not the scientist and I'm not the creator. But positive intelligence tries to move you from that perspective to the sage. And I'm going to let Jen give you, because boy, Jen in our conversations. Boy, she's got a reference library. I tell you, if I ever need a translator, Jen, and remind me, because it'll be an invitation you to join us next year at our retreat. I already have a couple of translators, but you know what? If you ever need a translator, we will invite Jen in. But Jen, what would you say about sage and moving from one to the other?
So, what you talked about here is, I mean, you brought in a lot, and so, yeah, when we're doing things like, just with him twirling his thumbs, there's that touch sensation, focusing on that. What positive intelligence does is it doesn't stop trauma, it doesn't stop grief, it doesn't change who we are. It slows us down to be in this moment so that we can make different decisions about how we respond to what's going on around us. And it's also really interesting with the trauma, going back to, deep experience with that and the neuroscience around that, is these skills that we learn in positive intelligence. They're not new skills. Like you said, it's kind of like this way of bringing all these different modalities together and simplifying them in a way that's so easy to teach and learn. And so these skills are not brand new. They've been around for thousands of years, and for good reason. And they come naturally to us because what they do is, when we're using these skills, when we're being mindful and present, and I don't mean meditating, I just mean mindful in the moment, seeing what's going on around us in the moment, the colors around us in the moment, that frees up our brain space. That frees up our brain's ability to actually process the grief, the trauma, the pain, whatever's happening, because our brains are actually really capable of doing a lot of self-healing if we give them the room to do it. It's kind of like when you have a wound on your hand. If you take care of that wound and you dress that wound, it's going to heal. Where if you just let it go, it's going to get infected and spread, right? Um, and so positive intelligence just gives us those skills to basically, put antibiotics on the wound and let it heal.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, it's not going to take it away, but it's going to help that heal. It's going to help us switch out of the catastrophic thoughts that can come with, especially trauma or grief, and switch from, especially as we're talking about grief, as that's been really coming up for a lot of people, including me, is switch from the why is this happening? Why me? Why is this happening? This sucks. This shouldn't have to be. We're resisting reality. And we drop into the present moment and we go, okay, this is what it is. Now I have a chance, because I'm here present. I can give myself the love that I need. I can give myself the support that I need. I can figure out, I can think more clearly about the support I need from others. And in grief, especially, that switches us from the why me, why did this happen, into like, why did this person leave? Because that is the nature of life, unfortunately. Into like, we use these skills and we switch into how lucky I to have this person and their knowledge and their wisdom and their love and their support. And we're
Ah,
still in grief and we'll still have tears, but they become tears of gratitude and joy. And that heals faster.
you should see the emojis popping up, the
Oh.
hands of celebration, the hearts, the insightful, insightful comments, and Ronnie's tapping in also. And Ronnie, we gotta create a great space for you to pop in and join us sometime, even if it's not on a Monday. Ronnie, I want to thank you. Next year's summer retreat, you reminded me, plan another one. So next summer will be hybrid, we'll be live, we'll be virtual. We're going to the Pacific Northwest. We'll talk more about that later. But Ronnie's saying authenticity begs us to just be. And I have to thank you for that, Ronnie, because I think the positive intelligence work helped me realize that I needed to explore vulnerability. I learned that from the lens of trying to communicate with dad, of going through the program myself. But I think the reason why I fell in love with Ignite Trust was that taught me the transparency. And in between the two, they helped me trade authenticity for being genuine, acknowledging, yeah, Mel the introvert is here today, or Mel the ambivert, the mix of the introvert or the extrovert, or Mel with my beautiful Zoom or virtual blanket from my cousin Gloria that's sitting here. I think the imposter stuff is something we need to keep defining, just like we're defining saboteurs, or just like um, Jen is helping us think of this through a different lens, because we really do. Like Ronnie said, we all experience it in different ways with different people. Ronnie, I needed to know, you mentioned before emotional regulation. I had to learn how to navigate my emotions, and positive intelligence and the trust work and the trust certifications are doing that. And I had to pause the beta program. And Jen didn't realize it, but a conversation with her gave me permission to pause, to hit a Mel pause button during Yvette's Say Yes to Me course that I took this summer. I had to work on self trust around the frame of Mel, self trust around the frame of grief, self trust about how I showed up during rebranding, while trying to write a book, while coaching leadership clients, while trying to support family. And after planning many of the details of my pop celebration of life, one conversation with Jen, and I learned to pause the rate of learning, the rate of exploration, the rate of communication. Like Jen's saying, we're going everywhere. And I love it because last week in LinkedIn Mastery, they were talking about personal stories and how much we share. I am sharing because you are helping me explore, accept, and remember to show how much I care. And ooh, Libby Edmonds in the house. 6 seconds EQ community, NPQ community. Libby is an amazing member also of the PQ Coaches Collective on Clubhouse. And Libby, she's amazing. Just like you say in our conversations, we need to hang out sometime in another conversation with beautiful Jen. Jen, where should we go next? So I don't.
Yeah,
Where,
so like I
where
said,
should we go next?
so many different things. So I'd also love to just mention something on Ronnie's comment about authenticity begs us to just be. Imposter behavior is often adopted because we're not in safe spaces. I think that's a beautiful way to put it because, Mel, as you're talking about authenticity, a lot of times, and I think this is kind of some of that almost imposter behavior, like we feel like, and this is when we're coming from that trauma lens or that place of scarcity, really, we feel like if I share all this stuff with people, then they won't hurt me, right? If I share my pain, my trauma, they're going to understand that I'm overwhelmed or whatever. But the really underlying thing is safety. But the thing is, then we overshare and we don't share truly authentically because we're still controlling what we're sharing of ourselves. And I know this personally because I was very surprised when I discovered that I was actually emotionally unavailable because I was like, I share so much about myself. No, I was trauma dumping on people, and it was not fully authentic because I wasn't sharing the whole me. And authenticity, like we also have to be careful with this, especially from a lens of burnout, is with authenticity, when we are in the moment, we can be and we can be our authentic self, which allows us to see what is safe to share, what's not safe to share emotionally with the other person. Because, you're not going to share with the male person is not going to get the same share from you as a close friend or a colleague or a coworker, right? And so when we can be in that moment, we can be our authentic selves and know what's appropriate and what's not. And the imposter behavior just triggered a thought in my head because I got the opportunity to speak with Lane. You know her last name, Mel. I'm flaking on her last name. Um, but she was in the World Mental Health Day live that we did last week. And Lane works with women of color, and she talks about not only imposter syndrome, but imposter treatment. And so I think that's another thing that can really impact our authenticity anytime that we've been othered by imposter treatment. And so I will defer to her because she is like the expert on that. But it was just this light bulb moment that I loved. And so that's another piece to look at in, our authenticity and being. And it does beg us to be. It does beg us to be right here, right now.
Is that Lark that you're talking about
Lark.
also?
Yes.
Lark,
I'm sorry,
Lark,
not Lane. What was I
Lark. You're
thinking?
good. You're good. Actually,
Lark.
I think the lane is not an accident because we were talking about navigating twists and turns in our description, navigating sharp turns, navigating twists, the process of trying to move. And as some would say, can't you just channel your inner happiness? Can't you just bring out your joy? I smiled because I've had people refer to me as an eternal optimist. When the box of tissues is nearby, the optimists may be on hiatus. And you know, I think also Lark is amazing. And I'm also looking forward to having a deeper discussion with her. We've been hanging out in these LinkedIn streets for a while, and we haven't made time yet, as they say, for a coffee chat. As some of us get into the process of busyness, or that life as a solo entrepreneur, or navigating the full-time work, the part-time muddle hustle, the switching lanes. I wrote to a friend as in the midst of rebranding, Be Visible with Mel popped up as kind of an inspiration to show up during the pandemic. People will see Be Visible with Mel will always exist under the turtle shell. I'm rebranding as Be Visible Solutions because the umbrella is wider. Coaching, speaking, maybe being an author, the gifts and incentives lady, the event alchemy lady, helping others elevate event experiences. And you'll notice, and I appreciate it with transparency. Emma encouraged me a while ago. She said, "Oh my gosh, Mel has stuff she's offering. Oh my gosh, we have stuff to sell." We all are trying to offer solutions. It took me ages. My original website that needs to be updated, and bevisiblesolutions.com. It's coming, it's coming. But my current website was bevisible.solutions. We keep moving away. The opposite of shiny object syndrome, the opposite of the avoider saboteur in positive intelligence. Or we keep hitting that pause button. The I want it all doesn't mean we can do it all. We can dream of it all, is probably the joke I would say, about dreaming in full color. And for those of you who hang out with me in the event streets, I'm launching a LinkedIn audio series in about 48 hours. Newsflash,
Nice.
creating connections to scale. I'm inviting you. You'll find the event pop up tonight as soon as my amazing team helps the graphically challenged Mel reinsert the date on a new profile picture that I happen to take at a live conference on Thursday. But I think what happens is we have trouble with the merge. I used to host a virtual event series called Be Visible Shifts for that reason. The reminder, we need to keep as I called it, the hashtag make space to emerge. We don't do that. We don't do it if we don't have enough support, if we feel shy, if it doesn't feel perfect. Um, I'm transparent today about graphics, not my skill set. So I will wait patiently for exquisite Eve in the UK to fix the graphics. It may pop up tomorrow. If it does, those of you who always ask me what you can do to help, help me tomorrow. Shout out a LinkedIn audio series starting on October 16th at 3:33 p.m. Eastern, and it will continue for 5 weeks. And I want to thank Shel Shapiro for helping me play catch with this over the weekend. We dream big sometimes. Sometimes we dream in black and white. Sometimes we don't dream at all. Sometimes we hit the pause button. Sometimes we're not fully present. And in some cases, it may be because of what Sean said: personal stuff, family stuff, generational stuff, trauma stuff. What Jen's saying, slowing down how we process, how we reach, how we communicate, how we connect with each other. I left because I showed a moonstone box. My nails are now the color moonstone. My car I named Moonstone. Maybe it helps me remember the I dreaming of it all. Jen, where do we go to next? And how do people find Jen?
So let's start with that one. So you can find me at silverwheelcoaching.com. That would be my website. I'm also on LinkedIn. Honestly, I don't do a ton on social media. Part of this is we were, talking about, maybe discussing boundaries here. So part of the reason I don't do a ton of posts on social media is as I'm working with clients on burnout, one of the biggest things I ask them to do, especially the ones who are constantly on social media, is start to, when it's negatively impacting you, start to reduce your time, because we have many studies out now that are showing that, especially in younger adults, when they limit, and I'm not talking specifically people who are on social media for work, I'm talking about people just scrolling social media, right? And when you're scrolling, people who limit their social media time to an hour a day or less, anxiety plummets, depression improves. We have all of these, our connections with people around us obviously improve because we're not attached to our phone 24 hours a day. So I feel a little inauthentic asking, like posting and marketing a lot on social media when I'm then telling my clients, oh yeah, by the way, you found me here, but reduce your time. So that is why my website is my primary way to find out more about me. And you can also email me, Jen with two N's. So Jen at silverwheelcoaching.com. And I do offer a free session for people who are interested in working with me. So that's how you find me.
When you're on Jen's website, check out the blog she has about self care and
Thank
some of
you.
her other blogs, and we'll encourage her to keep writing.
Yeah, I need to get back to the writing. It's been a very, very interesting year. So I kind of tapered off a little bit, but it doesn't feel like things are calming down right now, but they really are. And so, I'm getting back to that. But I love that you read those posts. Thank you. Um,
I read a couple of them, and I'm mentioning it because a lot of our those who join us are listening on headphones.
mhm.
They're in their car. It's another reason why I share banners on our live events so that people have a visual to kind of bookmark, pause, and look at later. And people will discover you on YouTube. It's why I'm encouraging anybody who discovers Jen, give her a shout out on Meta, give her a shout out on LinkedIn, give her a shout out when Carla cleans our wonderful episode up and puts us on YouTube. And back to Jen.
So yeah, so thank you for that. And I know that, we so yeah, reset. So some of the stuff you were talking about as far as like merging and like how we overextend ourselves. And again, that's part of why I love I Want It All, because we can come from this sage perspective or, oh, let's see, vicarious trauma. I missed the rest of that. So,
It's from earlier. You were
oh,
mentioning
okay.
vicarious trauma. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Um,
and and Lisa's just saying she really appreciates the
yeah.
conversation.
Oh,
So I
perfect.
apologize for distracting you with flashing images
Oh,
on
it's
the screen.
okay. I just had a squirrel moment there. So, but yeah, so I want it all. Like I said, we can come from this very sage place of like, wow, all these opportunities. Let me focus on one day at a time, one step at a time, and let life unfold to all these beautiful mysteries. Or we can get into I want it all and I want it now. And my joke is my mom didn't name me patience for a reason. And I stole that line from her because I'm kind of clumsy. And so when I would like just like run into walls as a kid, she'd be like, I didn't name you Grace for a reason. And so in my adulthood, while she was still with us, I was like, yeah, you obviously didn't name me Patience for a reason too. Um, and so again, that can lead to a lot of burnout because we get so excited and we just want to do everything. Or those of us like I am someone who I'm deeply empathetic. And ever since I was a child, I was a born advocate with too many causes. And we want to help everyone. We want to do everything. We want to experience everything. And that is part of what leads to burnout. And since we did say we were going to talk about boundaries, just like self-care, when I work with people on self-care, so often we're all focused on physical self-care. And we read all this junk on social media or in media or in advertisements. It's like self-care is like lavish vacations and all these things that cost money. Self-care doesn't cost money and it doesn't take a lot of time, but it needs to be balanced: physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, psychological, and then financial in our personal lives, right? Like it's this balance. That's all life is a balance. And it's not like a teeter totter. It's more like this kind of like tension between everything where it's like right at that right tension point. And that goes for boundaries too.
Jen,
Um,
that's a mic drop. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Whew.
Thank you. And that is, that's one thing. Like we talk about work life balance. That's a load of crap. None of us can compartmentalize to the point where like we just go, oh, work's off, oh, home's off. Like we have lives and we have work. Soul care, I love it. I love that. Um, but yeah, and so it's this, I've never found the right word. It's just kind of this tension, right? That like we get everything into the balance that is right for us. Not like a either or teeter totter balance. And boundaries are the same because we think about boundaries. And it was actually funny. I was doing a presentation for our local Rotary Club. And as I talked about boundaries, I had this woman in her 80s who like repeated back to me what she was hearing. And it was the most beautiful explanation of boundaries I've ever heard. And she was just summarizing what I said. But she was like, "So if I'm hearing you right," she's like, "I always thought of boundaries as like building a fence around my house to keep other people out. But what you're saying is I'm building this fence and it's how close I get to that fence or how far away I stay from that fence. It's not to keep others out, it's for me to remember how close to that edge I'm getting." I'm like, "That is the most beautiful analogy." She's like, "Really? But I don't know this stuff." I'm like, "That was a beautiful analogy." Because we often mistake rules for boundaries or demands for boundaries. And boundaries are an inside game. Boundaries are more kind of rules for ourselves. And so when we look at boundaries, I usually talk about several categories, which are physical boundaries. And That can be, we're going to have different physical boundaries at work and at home with random strangers or loved ones. Like whether you hug clients or don't hug clients, right? You're not going to kind of like go to the grocery store and like hug a random clerk. But when you see your, family, you're going to be like, give me a hug. So boundaries are physical boundaries like that, and even our space, like our personal space, right? We also, and I think this is where so many of us struggle, is our time boundaries. And our time boundaries can be, how much time am I willing to give away for free? My time boundaries could be, I need personal time. I need time for me. And this is the amount of time I need every day that is just Jen time. No one else. I'm not sitting there thinking about everything else. It is just me time. We also have our intellectual boundaries, and that's really like, especially for those of us who do business, have businesses, how much intellectual property am I willing to give away for free, right? Um, and that can come up in regular workspaces as well, because when we're working for another company, again, how much intellectual property am I willing to provide this company that I no longer can use if I leave here? Um, Professional boundaries, I think those are kind of self-explanatory, but again, like how do I want to come across in the world? And emotional boundaries, which is getting back to that subject of authenticity and vulnerability, right? How much am I going to share in what spaces? And so you can see these are all like an inside job, right? Like this isn't about other people blowing through my boundaries. This is me blowing through my own boundaries. When I'm like, I had someone call me the other day and ask me for a massive, massive favor. And instead of being in my old way of being like, yeah, sure, I'll do it, I was like, and I'm the extrovert here. You're the introvert. You have a little better chance of being able to be like, let me think about this. But we all have that. I want to help everyone, right? And so for me as an extrovert, like it was a big, big deal for me to celebrate myself and say, for being able to say, I'm really going to need to think about this. Let me look at this and I'll call you back in a couple days. So that would be, that's what boundaries are. Because I can't blame that other person if I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then later I'm all resentful because I really didn't have the mental, emotional, energetic resources to do it. That's on me. I blew past my own boundary.
Oof. Jen, you're going to have to come back and hang out with us again.
I love you.
Oh, I would love it. And to pick another date and a date soon. And especially to many of us in the positive intelligence community as we're navigating early access,
Yeah.
changes in our business, amazing conversations in the community about how it's changing how we show up. But I'd love to just thank our amazing guests for joining us today, and fabulous, fabulous Jen. And to thank you in advance for your grace, for holding space for others, for reaching out, for sending warm hugs and lots of lovely emojis across the miles, and lots of smiles, and for just lifting others up. And I hope you find some space today to reach out to somebody who hasn't heard your voice, who could use a little bit of extra love or a shout out or just a reminder, as Taryn Victor helped shared last week during retail and busy holiday seasons. She shows kindness to cashiers and retail employees to remind them, I see you, amazing human.
And I think it's important we all do that, man. We're all humans having this existence. Let's love each other a little more, man. I sound like a
Definitely.
hippie.
You got it. You got it. And to those of you who are driving and listening to us online, if you have a chance, please share the recording with somebody else, introduce somebody else to amazing Jen. Um, and stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, and stay in touch. And please have a magnificent day filled with opportunities and possibilities. And if you need to reach out and you need an ear, we're definitely both here. We have links on our LinkedIn profile. Just reach out. And as Jen and an amazing speaker, Deb Harrison, said last week, she has a kindness meter. Let's be kinder to one another in the process of I want it all. Take great care, everybody. Be well. Talk to you soon.